hardship. I told myself I can pass any test a man can pass.
Navi. They are very hard to kill.
Locate. Those savages are threatening our whole operation. We're on the brink.
DNA, mixed with DNA of the natives.
Jake, it's real simple. I want you.
Outstanding. Strong prey on the weak, and nobody does a thing.
You've got 1 hour.
They've sent us a message that they can take whatever they want.
James Cameron's Avatar isn't just a movie, it's a groundbreaking world that redefined cinema. But beneath the stunning visuals and epic story, there are hidden details and fascinating facts most fans never notice. Today, on Hidden Real Facts, we're diving into the secrets of Pandora and uncovering what makes Avatar a true cinematic masterpiece. Avatar is a 2009 epic science fiction movie that was co-produced, co-edited, written, and directed by James Cameron. The film stars Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Stephen Lang, Michelle Rodriguez, and Sigourney Weaver. Released by 20th Century Fox, it is the first movie in the Avatar film series. The story takes place in the middle of the 22nd century, when humans are exploring and settling on Pandora, a green and livable moon that orbits a gas giant in the Alpha Centauri star system. The humans are there to mine a valuable mineral called unobtainium, which is a powerful superconductor that works at normal temperatures. The expansion of this mining colony puts the native people of Pandora, called the Na'vi, at risk of losing their home and way of life. The title Avatar refers to a specially made Na'vi body that can be controlled by the mind of a human from far away, allowing humans to interact with the native species of Pandora through these avatars. The idea for Avatar began in 1994, when James Cameron wrote an 80-page outline for the movie. Filming was supposed to start after Cameron finished his 1997 movie Titanic, with a planned release in 1999. However, Cameron explained that the technology available at the time was not advanced enough to bring his vision to life. Work on the made-up Na'vi language began in 2005, and Cameron started writing the script and designing the world of Pandora in early 2006. Avatar had an official budget of $237 million, mainly because of the new and groundbreaking visual effects developed with the company Weta Digital in New Zealand. Some estimates put the cost even higher, between $280 million and $310 million for production, plus about $150 million for promotion. The film used a lot of advanced 3D computer graphics and new motion capture techniques, and it was released in many formats: traditional viewing, 3D, using REL 3D, Dolby 3D, Span 3D, and IMAX 3D, and even 4D experiences in some theaters in South Korea. Cameron also worked again with producer John Landau, who had worked with him on Titanic and played a major role in making Avatar happen. Avatar premiered at the Odeon Leicester Square Inches London on December 10, 2009, and came out in the United States on December 18. The film received mostly positive reviews from critics, who were amazed by its groundbreaking visual effects, though some thought the story felt familiar and not very original. During its run in theaters, Avatar broke many box office records, becoming the highest-grossing movie of all time. In July 2019, it was briefly passed by Avengers: Endgame, but when Avatar was re-released in China in March 2021, it regained the top spot as the highest-grossing film. Adjusted for inflation, Avatar is the second highest-grossing movie in history, right after Gone with the Wind, 1939, earning more than $3.5 billion worldwide. It was also the first film to make more than $2 billion and became the best-selling video title of 2010 in the United States. Avatar was nominated for 9 Academy Awards at the 82nd Oscars and won 3. It also earned many other awards. The movie's success led to the release of 3D televisions by electronics companies and made 3D movies much more popular. The film's huge success led to the creation of the Avatar franchise, which now includes sequels: The Way of Water, 2022, Fire and Ash, 2025, Avatar 4, 2029, and Avatar 5, 2031. Casting Jake Sully. That discovery of Sam Worthington. The selection of Sam Worthington for the pivotal role of Jake Sully in James Cameron's Avatar marked the turning point not just for the actor but for the entire production's vision of blending raw human vulnerability with epic spectacle. Worthington, an Australian actor born in Godalming, England, in 1976, had been toiling in the trenches of Sydney's theatre scene and low-budget films for years before this opportunity arose. His early career was a grind. After dropping out of high school and working odd jobs as a bricklayer and lifeguard, he stumbled into acting via drama class at Sydney's National Institute of Dramatic Art, NIDA. There, he honed his craft in stage productions like Judas Kiss and The Rover. What Hollywood seemed distant. By the mid-2000s, Worthington had bit parts in Australian TV shows like Heartland and films such as Bootman, 2000, where he played a tape-dancing steelworker, showcasing his physicality and everyman charm. When casting director Marjorie Simpkin, a veteran of films like The Dark Knight and Say 7N, began scouting for Jake Sully, a paraplegic Marine veteran thrust into an alien world, Cameron had a specific archetype in mind, a blue-collar hero with grit, not polish. Jake needed to embody the film's themes of redemption, cultural clash, and personal transformation, requiring an actor who could convey quiet intensity amid motion capture suits and green screen voids. Simpkin, known for her intuitive eye for unknowns, received Worthington's audition tape from his Australian agent. It was raw. Worthington, frustrated by the project's secrecy, codenamed Project 880, spat his gum at the camera in a fit of defiance during the tape. This unscripted moment of rebellion caught Cameron's eye immediately. He had that fire, Simpkin later recalled in interviews. James saw the spark of the same kind of unfiltered energy that made Leonardo DiCaprio shine in Titanic. The audition process stretched over months, a testament to Cameron's meticulous approach. Worthington flew to Los Angeles multiple times, enduring chemistry reads with potential Neytiri candidates and improvisational sessions where he had to act paraplegia without props, relying on subtle facial tics and vocal inflections. Studio executives at 20th Century Fox pushed for bigger names. Matt Damon and Jake Gyllenhaal were rumored contenders, but Cameron and Simpkin held firm. "We knew Sam was it," Simpkin said. "He wasn't a star yet, but he had the soul of one." Worthington's persistence paid off. He beat out hundreds, including established talents, because his reading of Jake's arc from cynical soldier to Navialia felt authentic. In one pivotal session, Cameron had him deliver the line, "I may not be much, but I'm all I got," while simulating zero gravity, testing emotional depth in isolation. Preparation for the role was grueling. Worthington spent weeks in physical training to mimic military precision. Even though much of Jake's action would be CGI, he worked with dialect coaches to soften his Aussie accent into a neutral American drawl, drawing from his own experiences of feeling like an outsider. On set, performing in a motion capture suit, essentially a great leotard dotted with sensors, he bonded with the cast through shared discomfort. "It was like being in a bad sci-fi porno," Worthington joked in a 2009 Variety interview. His performance, captured via Cameron's innovative fusion camera system, translated seamlessly into the Navi avatar, with Worthington's expressive eyes and slump posture conveying Jake's internal conflict. Critics praised how his casting grounded the film's visuals. Roger Ebert noted, "Worthington's everyman vulnerability makes you root for Jake, blue skin or not." Post-Avatar, Worthington's career exploded. The film's $2.8 billion box office haul catapulted him to A-list status, leading to roles in Clash of the Titans, 2010, The Debt, 2010, and Wrath of the Titans, 2012. Yet, he credits the casting choice with teaching him humility. "James saw something in me I didn't see myself." This decision exemplified Cameron's philosophy of betting on potential over pedigree, influencing sequels where Worthington reprised Jake, aging the character through to aging tech. In retrospect, casting Worthington wasn't just about filling a role, it was about humanizing a blockbuster, ensuring Avatar's heart beat as fiercely as its spectacle dazzled. Worthington's journey underscores the risks Simpkin and Cameron took. At 32 during filming, he was older than a typical ingenue lead, bringing lived-in weariness to Jake's PTSD subplot. Behind-the-scenes footage from Avatar's making-of documentaries reveals hours of takes where Worthington improvised Jake's marine banter, drawing from real veterans he'd consulted. This authenticity resonated. Audience polls on IMDb show Jake as one of cinema's most relatable sci-fi protagonists. Moreover, Worthington's casting sparked discussions on globalization in Hollywood, an Aussie playing an American everyman, paving the way for diverse leads in blockbusters. Expanding on his preparation, Worthington immersed in Na'vi lore, co-creating gestures with Cameron that became canon, like the "I see you" ritual. His chemistry tests with Saldana were electric. In one, they simulated a banshee flight sequence on wires, laughing through falls. This levity bled into the film, softening Jake's arc. Economically, his lower salary, reportedly $12 million, allowed budget allocation to VFX, a savvy choice yielding returns. Today, at 49, Worthington reflects on the role as transformative. "It gave me legs when I felt paralyzed in my career." Casting Neytiri, Zoe Saldana +- as transformative auditions. Zoe Saldana +- as embodiment of Neytiri, the fierce Na'vi princess, stands as one of Avatar's most inspired casting triumphs, blending physical prowess, emotional depth, and cultural nuance into a performance that transcended motion capture's limitations. Born Zoe Saldana +- a Pineda in 1978 in Passaic, New Jersey, to a Dominican father and Puerto Rican mother, Saldana +- grew up shuttling between Queens and the Dominican Republic, where she trained in ballet and acted in school plays. Her breakthrough came with Center Stage, 2000, as a fiery ballerina, followed by Drumline, 2002, showcasing her athleticism. By 2006, she'd earned acclaim in Guess Who, 2005, opposite Ashton Kutcher, but Avatar demanded something unprecedented, leading a $237 million spectacle as a 9-foot-tall alien. Marjorie Simpkins sought performers for Neytiri who could move like a panther, prioritizing dancers and athletes for the role's acrobatic demands. Saldana +- then 29, submitted a tape that included clips from her dance background, impressing with her lithe frame and expressive face. Her in-person audition was a gauntlet. Cameron had candidates climb ropes, perform cartwheels, and improvise jungle hunts by playing with office furniture as props. It felt like a circus tryout. Saldana +- laughed in a 2010 Entertainment Weekly profile. But her edge came in emotional reads tasked with conveying Neytiri's warrior spirit without dialogue. Since the Na'vi language was unfinished, she rolled R's gutturally and growled lines as numbers 1 2 3, hunt, evoking primal fury. Simpkin noted this as colorblind casting at its finest. Saldana +- a woman of color, vied against a blonde, blue-eyed actress, but Cameron merged their tapes to test chemistry with Worthington. Zoe's fire lit up the screen. He said, "The decision wasn't immediate. Cameron tested dozens, including unknowns and stars like Sigourney Weaver, initially considered for a different role." Saldana +- as Dominican heritage informed her approach. She infused Neytiri with Afro-Caribbean rhythms, consulting cultural experts on indigenous portrayals to avoid stereotypes. Preparation involved months at Weta Digital in New Zealand, learning the Na'vi language from linguist Paul R. Fromra. Over 1,000 words of clicks, trills, and throat sounds. On set, in a mocap suit, she bonded with Worthington through shared vegan meals. Both adopted plant-based diets for energy, forging the Jake Neytiri romance that anchors the film. Saldana +- as performance, lauded for its soul-piercing quality amid CGI, earned her a Saturn Award nomination. Reviewers like those in The Guardian hailed how her casting elevated Avatar's environmental allegory, with Neytiri as a symbol of indigenous resistance. Post-release, it boosted Saldana +- as trajectory. Star Trek, 2009, as Yuta, Guardians of the Galaxy, 2014, as Gamora, making her the highest-grossing female action star. She reprised Neytiri in sequels, her motion capture expertise now industry standard. Delving deeper, Saldana as audition revealed Cameron's innovative process. Actors performed blind, sans sets, testing internalization. Her advice to aspiring performers: like them as much as they like you, stems from this, emphasizing reciprocity. Economically, her casting diversified the ensemble, broadening Avatar's global appeal. It grossed $350 million internationally on release. Culturally, it challenged Hollywood's whitewashing, influencing roles like in Black Panther. At 47, Saldana views Neytiri as empowering. She taught me to own my wild side. Reuniting with legends. Sigourney Weaver as Dr. Grace Augustine. Sigourney Weaver's return to James Cameron's universe as Dr. Grace Augustine, a chain-smoking xenobiologist bridging human and Na'vi worlds, epitomized the director's penchant for leveraging past collaborations to infuse nostalgia and gravities. Born Susan Alexandra Weaver in 1949 in New York City to a theatrical family, her mother was an actress, father an editor at the New York Times. Weaver's career exploded with Alien, 1979, where Cameron later directed her in Aliens, 1986, earning an Oscar nod for Ripley. By Avatar's development in the early 2000s, Weaver was a selective icon. Fresh Off the Village, 2004, and Snow White, A Tale of the Apple on stage. Casting Grace was less audition-heavy, more reunion. Cameron wrote the role with Weaver in mind, envisioning her as the intellectual counterpoint to Jake's brawn. Simkin facilitated a casual read-through in 2007, where Weaver chain-smoked, mirroring Grace's habit, and bantered about Pandora's ecology. It was like picking up where Aliens left off, Weaver told Vanity Fair. No formal tests or gravitas sealed it. At 58 during filming, she brought maternal wisdom to Grace, a mentor figure whose arc from corporate chill to Na'vi echoed Ripley's evolution. Preparation was intellectual. Weaver devoured ethnobotany texts and consulted NASA scientists on exobiology. On set, her mocap sessions contrasted her live-action scenes, Grace's human form, requiring split performances. She improvised lines like "This is our Eden" with Na'vi inflections, influencing the script. Critics adored her. The New York Times called Grace Weaver's most poignant since Ripley, her death scene a tearjerker. The casting's impact? It bridged Avatar to Cameron's oeuvre, nodding to Aliens via Easter eggs like RDA parallels to Wayland Yutani. Weaver's salary, mid-seven figures, reflected her star power, but she deferred VFX credit to innovate. Post-Avatar, she starred in Vamps, 2012. And reprised Grace as Carrie's voice in Avatar, The Way of Water, 2022. This choice humanized the science, making Grace's plea they're not going to give up the homesite, not without a fight ring true. Weaver's process highlighted Cameron's trust in veterans. She advised young actors to embrace failure as fuel. Her George Wolfe, her Dominican roots, from her mother's side, added layers to Grace's cultural empathy. In Avatar's legacy, Weaver's casting ensured thematic depth, proving icons evolve. The antagonist's edge. Stephen Lang as Colonel Miles Quaritch. Stephen Lang's portrayal of Colonel Miles Quaritch, the hawkish Marine leading humanity's invasion of Pandora, injected Avatar with its most quotable villainy, a casting coup that turned a stock militarist into a scene-stealing force. Born in 1952 in Queens, New York, to a wealthy entrepreneur father, Lang studied at Syracuse University, debuting on Broadway in The Shadow Box, 1977. His screen career included Manhunter, 1986, as a chilling psychopath, and Tombstone, 1993, as Ike Clinton, but by the 2000s, he was theater-bound, starring in one-man shows like Beyond Glory, 2004, honoring veterans. Simkin spotted Lang in an ad for Beyond Glory, where the 55-year-old appeared buffer and fiercer than ever. He was in unbelievable shape, she recalled. Cameron, seeking a cartoonishly evil yet believable foe, tested Lang in a helmet read, barking orders like "We will fight terror with terror." Lang's Marine background, from research, and gravelly voice clinched it over Michael Biehn. Nixed to avoid Aliens' confusion with Weaver. Auditions involved improv battles with Worthington, Lang channeling Patton-esque bluster. Preparation was immersive. Lang trained with ex-Marines, learning knife fights and zero-G maneuvers. His mocap work emphasized Quaritch's scars and sneer, amplified in CGI. The final battle's bullet sponge line became iconic. Reviews hailed him. Rolling Stone deemed Quaritch Lang's best since Tombstone. Casting Lang, a character actor, saved budget while delivering menace, influencing his Don't Blink 2023 roles. He reprised Quaritch in sequels as a recombinant. Lang's advice: own the cliché told to copyright. This choice sharpened Avatar's colonialism critique. Supporting pillars: Michelle Rodriguez and the ensemble dynamics. Michelle Rodriguez is Trudy Chack-tilde-cubed-den, the ace pilot with a moral pivot, added Rodriguez's signature toughness to Avatar's human side, a casting that leveraged her action heroine archetype. Born in 1978 in Bixar County, Texas, Rodriguez broke out with Girl Fight 2000, earning an Independent Spirit nod as a boxing teen. Roles in The Fast and the Furious 2001, and SWT 2003, typecast her as the tough Latina, but Cameron saw nuance for Trudy, a loyalist turned rebel. Simkin cast Rodriguez after a tape from Lost 2004, where her Aunt Lucia exuded grit. Audition: helicopter sims and banter with Rebaisi. At 30, Rodriguez trained in flight maneuvers, her Dominican Puerto Rican heritage informing Trudy's fishiness. Her bitch line to Quaritch stole scenes. Critics praised her arc. It boosted her to Avatar sequels and Dune 2021. Giovanni Ribisi as Parker Selfridge, the smarmy exec, echoed Alien's Burke, a nod to Cameron's roots. Born in 1974 in Los Angeles, Ribisi's quirky intensity from Saving Private Ryan, 1998, fit. Cast via Simkin after Cold Mountain, 2003, his audition mocked corporate greed hilariously. Preparation: accent work for Selfridge's southern drawl. His RDA makes us money. Rant critique: capitalism. CCH Pounders met Nate Teever's mother, brought regal authority. Born in Guyana in 1952, Pounders the Shield, 2002, role impressed at 56. She mastered Navi poise, her Emmy-winning gravitas shining. Joel David Moore's Norm Spellman added nerdy charm, cast for improv skills from Dodgeball, 2004. These choices created balance, with Simpkins' eye ensuring diversity. Rodriguez and Pounder as women of color in power roles. Ensemble chemistry tests fostered bonds, like Rodriguez's pranks on set. Their performances grounded Avatar, proving supporting casts elevate epics. The Na'vi clan, casting the blue-skinned ensemble. Casting the Na'vi required a dance of physicality and expressiveness, with Simkin scouting performers for their ability to emote in a void. Laz Alonso as Tsidi, the betrothed warrior, was chosen for his The Border, 2008, athleticism. His audition involved spear throws, channeling jealousy toward Jake. Born in 1974 in Washington, D.C., Alonso's chemistry with Saldana sparked clan tension. Wes Studi as Idak, the clan leader, brought Native American authenticity. Born Cherokee in 1947, his dances with wolves, 1990, pedigree fit. Cast at 61, Studi consulted elders for dignity, his death scene poignant. Dilip Rao was Dr. Max Patel added intellect, his Inception, 2010, role later. Lesser knowns like Matt Gerald, Lyle Wainfleet, and Scott Lawrence, Winston, Phil Dartier ranks, their military backgrounds aiding realism. Na'vi extras underwent movement workshops, learning tail flicks and deer twitches. The Slayer enriched Pandora's world, with casting emphasizing inclusivity. Over 40 nationalities on set. Challenges of motion capture. Casting Avatar's mocap demanded actors who could perform sans visuals, a hurdle Simkin navigated by prioritizing internal actors. Pre-language auditions used gibberish, testing vulnerability. Cameron's real-time virtual camera allowed instant feedback, but suits chafed, fostering camaraderie. This process revolutionized casting, prioritizing essence over looks, influencing The Lion King, 2019. The casting director's vision. Marjorie Simpkins' legacy. Marjorie Simpkins' role was linchpin with credits from X-Men to Avatar. She balanced stars and unknowns. Her secrecy, NDAs galore, built hype. Quotes like "We cast souls, not faces" defined her. Post-Avatar, she cast sequels, her choices netting Oscars for VFX. Avatar, 2009. A comprehensive analysis production. Avatar is a 2009 epic science fiction film co-produced, co-edited, written, and directed by James Cameron. The production of Avatar represents one of the most ambitious and technologically groundbreaking undertakings in cinema history, fundamentally reshaping how films are conceived, created, and presented to audiences worldwide. Avatar was officially budgeted at $237 million, due to the groundbreaking array of new visual effects Cameron achieved in cooperation with Weta Digital and Wellington. However, other estimates put the cost at between $280 million and $310 million for production and at $150 million for promotion. The massive budget reflected Cameron's uncompromising vision and the unprecedented technological challenges the project faced. The production infrastructure for Avatar was nothing short of extraordinary. More than 1,000 people worked on the production, making it one of the largest film crews ever assembled. The scale of the undertaking required Cameron to essentially invent new filmmaking technologies and methodologies to realize his vision. One of the most significant aspects of Avatar's production was the development of new motion capture and virtual filmmaking technologies. According to Cameron, the film is composed of 60% computer-generated elements and 40% live action, as well as traditional miniatures. This hybrid approach required unprecedented coordination between practical filmmaking and digital artistry. The production design took several years to complete. The film had 2 different production designers, and 2 separate art departments, one of which focused on the flora and fauna of Pandora, and another that created human machines and human factors. This division of labor allowed for specialized focus on the vastly different visual elements that would comprise the final film. Cameron's commitment to environmental themes extended to the production process itself. Due to Cameron's personal convictions about climate change, he allowed only plant-based, vegan, food to be served on set. This decision reflected the film's environmental message and demonstrated Cameron's dedication to practicing what the film preached. The role of producer John Landau proved crucial to the production's success. Eventually, Cameron stated that it was John Landau who was the heart of the Avatar family and the center of gravity of our little bubble universe. Landau, who previously worked with Cameron as co-producer of Titanic, first met Cameron in 1993 when they were involved in the production of True Lies. The production faced significant challenges and skepticism from the studio system. Cameron installed a traffic light with the amber signal lit outside of co-producer John Landau's office to represent the film's uncertain future. This visual metaphor captured the precarious nature of the project's development and the constant negotiations required to maintain studio support. The technological demands of Avatar pushed the boundaries of what was possible in filmmaking at the time. To render Avatar, Weta used the 930 square meters, 10,000 square feet, server farm, making use of 4,000 Hewlett-Packard servers with 35,000 processor cores with 104 terabytes of RAM and 3 petabytes of network area storage running Ubuntu Linux. This computational power represented one of the most powerful computer systems dedicated to a single film project. The data storage requirements were staggering. Creating the Na'vi characters and the virtual world of Pandora required over a petabyte of digital storage, and each minute of the final footage for Avatar occupies 17.28 gigabytes of storage. These technical specifications illustrate the unprecedented scale of digital content creation that Avatar pioneered. The rendering process was extraordinarily time-consuming. It would often take the computer several hours to render a single frame of the film. This computational intensity required careful planning and resource management throughout the production timeline. Multiple visual effects companies contributed to the final product. To help finish preparing the special effects sequences on time, a number of other companies were brought on board, including Industrial Light Magic, which worked alongside Weta Digital to create the battle sequences. ILM's involvement brought additional expertise and resources to handle the film's complex action sequences. The collaborative nature of Avatar's production extended beyond traditional filmmaking boundaries. Cameron chose Ubisoft Montreal to create an Avatar game for the film in 2007. The filmmakers and game developers collaborated heavily, and Cameron decided to include some of Ubisoft's vehicle and creature designs in the film. This cross-media collaboration was innovative for its time and demonstrated Cameron's forward-thinking approach to franchise development. Development and pre-production. The genesis of Avatar spans over a decade of development, representing one of the longest gestation periods for any major Hollywood production. In 1994, director James Cameron wrote an 80-page treatment for Avatar, drawing inspiration from science fiction books he had read in his childhood, as well as from adventure novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs and H. Rider Haggard. Cameron's inspiration for Avatar came from multiple sources, including his own dreams and subconscious experiences. Parts of the movie also came to him in a dream when he was 19 years old. He dreamed about a bioluminescent forest with fiber-optic trees, fan lizards, a river with bioluminescent particles and a purple moss that lit up when stepped on. When he woke up, he made a drawing of the scene and later used it in the movie. This personal connection to the visual elements of Pandora would prove crucial to the film's distinctive aesthetic. The initial development phase was ambitious from the start. In August 1996, Cameron announced that after completing Titanic, he would film Avatar, which would make use of synthetic, or computer-generated, actors. The project would cost $100 million and involve at least 6 actors in leading roles who appear to be real but do not exist in the physical world. However, technological limitations forced a delay in the project. The project would be supposed to begin production in mid-1997 for a 1999 release. However, Cameron felt that the technology had not caught up with the story and vision that he intended to tell. This decision to wait for technology to mature proved prescient, as the advances in digital filmmaking in the subsequent decade would prove essential to Avatar's eventual success. Cameron's patience with technological development was validated by subsequent advances in computer graphics. In February 2006, Cameron revealed that his film Project 880 was a retooled version of Avatar, a film that he had tried to make years earlier, citing the technological advances in the creation of the computer-generated characters Gollum, King Kong, and Davy Jones. The proof-of-concept phase was crucial to securing studio backing. It was revealed in a Bloomberg Businessweek cover story that 20th Century Fox had fronted $10 million to Cameron to film a proof-of-concept clip for Avatar, which he showed to Fox executives in October 2005. This demonstration proved essential in convincing executives of the project's viability. The development of Pandora's indigenous culture was extensive and detailed. From January to April 2006, Cameron worked on the script and developed a culture for the Na'vi, the film's aliens. This world-building process included the creation of a complete language system for the Na'vi people. The Na'vi language was created by Paul Frommer, a linguist at USC. The Na'vi language has a lexicon of about 1,000 words, with some 30 added by Cameron. The tongue's phonemes include ejective consonants, such as the K, X and Xson, that are found in Amharic, and the initial ink that Cameron may have taken from Tirio Sorry. This linguistic authenticity added credibility to the Na'vi culture and enhanced the film's immersive qualities. Scientific consultation played an important role in developing Pandora's ecosystem. Actress Sigourney Weaver and the film set designers met with Jody S. Holt, professor of plant physiology at the University of California, Riverside, to learn about the methods used by botanists to study and sample plants, and to discuss ways to explain the communication between Pandora's organisms depicted in the film. The visual design process was collaborative and iterative. From 2005 to 2007, Cameron worked with a handful of designers, including famed fantasy illustrator Wayne Barlow and renowned concept artist Jordan Skell, to shape the design of the Na'vi with paintings and physical sculptures when Cameron felt that 3D brush renderings were not capturing his vision. often working together in the kitchen of Cameron's Malibu home. The production design phase extended over several years due to the complexity of creating two distinct visual worlds. In July 2006, Cameron announced that he would film Avatar for a mid-2008 release and planned to begin principal photography with an established cast by February 2007. However, these timelines would prove optimistic given the unprecedented technical challenges involved. Technology development was a crucial component of pre-production. In September 2006, Cameron was announced to be using his own reality camera system to film in 3D. The system would use two high-definition cameras in a single camera body to create depth perception. This camera system would prove essential to achieving the immersive 3D experience that became one of Avatar's defining characteristics. Studio commitment remained uncertain throughout the development process. While these preparations were underway, Fox wavered in its commitment to Avatar because of cost overruns and delays on Cameron's previous picture, Titanic. Cameron's track record, while ultimately successful, had created nervousness about budget control. The studio financing situation became particularly complex during pre-production. In mid-2006, Fox decisively declined to produce the film, so Cameron began shopping it around to other studios. He approached Walt Disney Studios, showing his proof of concept to then-chairman Dick Cook. The competition between studios ultimately worked in Cameron's favor. In October 2006, Fox finally committed to making Avatar after Ingenious Media agreed to back the film, reducing Fox's financial exposure to less than half of the film's official $237 million budget. This financing arrangement allowed the project to move forward while managing studio risk. The scale of the undertaking was acknowledged by all involved parties. After Fox accepted Avatar, one skeptical Fox executive told Cameron and Lando, "I don't know if we're crazier for letting you do this, or if you're crazier for thinking you can do this." This comment captured the unprecedented nature of the project and the risks involved for all parties. The filming of Avatar represented a revolutionary approach to motion picture production, combining traditional live-action cinematography with groundbreaking motion capture technology and virtual filmmaking techniques. Principal photography for Avatar began in April 2007 in Los Angeles and Wellington, marking the beginning of one of the most technologically complex filming processes ever undertaken. Cameron's approach to Avatar was fundamentally hybrid in nature. Cameron described the film as a hybrid with a full live-action shoot in combination with computer-generated characters and live environments. Ideally, at the end of the day, the audience has no idea which they're looking at, Cameron said. This seamless integration of practical and digital elements required unprecedented coordination and planning. The scale of preparation before principal photography began was extraordinary. The director indicated that he had already worked for months on non-principal scenes for the film. This extensive pre-production work included testing new technologies and refining the complex workflows required for the hybrid filming approach. The camera technology used for Avatar was cutting-edge and purpose-built for the project. The live action was shot with a modified version of the proprietary digital 3D fusion camera system, developed by Cameron and Vince Pace. This camera system was essential to capturing the stereoscopic imagery that would define the film's visual presentation. Technical specifications for the 3D filming were carefully considered. In January 2007, Fox had announced that 3D filming for Avatar would be done at 24 frames per second. Despite Cameron's strong opinion that a 3D film requires a higher frame rate to make strobing less noticeable, this compromise between technical ideals and practical constraints was typical of the many decisions required during production. The motion capture component of filming was extensive and technically complex. Motion capture photography lasted 31 days at the Hughes Aircraft Stage in Playa Vista, Los Angeles. This dedicated time for motion capture work was necessary to gather the performance data that would drive the computer-generated Na'vi characters. Live-action filming followed the motion capture sessions. Live-action photography began in October 2007 at Stone Street Studios in Wellington and was scheduled to last 31 days. The relatively brief live-action schedule reflected the fact that much of the film would be created digitally in post-production. The cast preparation for Avatar was intensive and comprehensive. In preparation of the filming sequences, all of the actors underwent professional training specific to their characters such as archery, horseback riding, firearm use, and hand-to-hand combat. They received language and dialect training in the Navi language created for the film. This preparation was essential for creating authentic performances that would translate effectively through the motion capture process. Environmental preparation was also part of the filming process. Before shooting the film, Cameron also sent the cast to the Hawaiian tropical rainforests to get a feel for a rainforest setting before shooting on the soundstage. This real-world experience with natural environments helped inform the actors' performances in the artificial studio environment. The virtual camera system represented one of Avatar's most significant technological innovations. During filming, Cameron made use of his virtual camera system, a new way of directing motion capture filmmaking. The system shows the actors' virtual counterparts in their digital surroundings in real time, allowing the director to adjust and direct scenes just as if shooting live action. Cameron's description of the virtual camera system captures its revolutionary nature. It's like a big, powerful game engine. If I want to fly through space, or change my perspective, I can turn the whole scene into a living miniature and go through it on a 50:1 scale. This technology gave Cameron unprecedented control over the virtual environments during filming. The benefits of the virtual camera system extended beyond technical convenience. Using conventional techniques, the complete virtual world cannot be seen until the motion capture of the actors is complete. Cameron said this process does not diminish the value or importance of acting. On the contrary, because there is no need for repeated camera and lighting setups, costume fittings and makeup touch-ups, scenes do not need to be interrupted repeatedly. Cameron's enthusiasm for the creative possibilities of the new technology was evident in his descriptions of the process. Cameron described the system as a form of pure creation where if you want to move a tree or a mountain or the sky or change the time of day, you have complete control over the elements. This level of control over the visual environment was unprecedented in filmmaking. The technology attracted attention from other prominent directors. Cameron gave fellow directors Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson a chance to test the new technology. This sharing of technological innovation demonstrated Cameron's commitment to advancing the craft of filmmaking beyond his own projects. Steven Spielberg's reaction to the technology was particularly positive. Spielberg said, "I like to think of it as digital makeup, not augmented animation." Motion capture brings the director back to a kind of intimacy that actors and directors only know when they're working in live theater. This perspective highlighted the human elements that remain central to the technological innovations. The integration of practical and digital elements required sophisticated technical solutions. To film the shots where CGI interacts with live action, a unique camera referred to as a simulcam was used, a merger of the 3D fusion camera and the virtual camera systems. This hybrid approach allowed for real-time visualization of how practical and digital elements would work together. While filming live action in real time with the simulcam, the CGI images captured with the virtual camera or designed from scratch are superimposed over the live action images as in augmented reality and shown on a small monitor, making it possible for the director to instruct the actors how to relate to the virtual material in the scene. This real-time feedback was crucial for achieving convincing interactions between practical and digital elements. Post-production Avatar's post-production process represented one of the most complex and technologically advanced phases of digital filmmaking ever undertaken. The scope and sophistication of the visual effects work required to bring Pandora to life pushed the boundaries of what was possible with computer graphics and established new standards for photorealistic digital environments and characters. A number of innovative visual effects techniques were used during production. According to Cameron, work on the film had been delayed since the 1990s to allow the techniques to reach the necessary degree of advancement to adequately portray his vision of the film. This lengthy development period allowed the technology to mature sufficiently to handle Avatar's unprecedented demands. The motion capture technology used for Avatar represented a significant advancement over previous techniques. The director planned to make use of photorealistic computer-generated characters, created using new motion capture animation technologies he had been developing in the 14 months leading up to December 2006. This extended development period was necessary to create the tools that would make Avatar's Na'vi characters possible. Several key innovations emerged during Avatar's post-production phase. Innovations include a new system for lighting massive areas like Pandora's Jungle, a motion capture stage or volume 6 times larger than any previously used, and an improved method of capturing facial expressions, enabling full performance capture. These technical advances would influence digital filmmaking for years to come. Facial capture technology was particularly crucial for creating believable digital characters. To achieve the face capturing, actors wore individually made skull caps fitted with a tiny camera positioned in front of the actors' faces. The information collected about their facial expressions and eyes is then transmitted to computers. This intimate capture of facial performance was essential for translating human emotion to the Na'vi characters. The fidelity of performance capture was a key goal for Cameron. According to Cameron, the method allows the filmmakers to transfer 100% of the actors' physical performances to their digital counterparts. This level of performance translation was unprecedented and crucial to the film's emotional impact. The data capture process was comprehensive and multi-layered. Besides the performance capture data which were transferred directly to the computers, numerous reference cameras gave the digital artists multiple angles of each performance. This extensive documentation ensured that no nuance of performance would be lost in the translation to digital form. Technical challenges in post-production were substantial and complex. A technically challenging scene was near the end of the film when the computer-generated Neytiri held the live-action Jake in human form, and attention was given to the details of the shadows and reflected light between them. This interaction between digital and practical elements required extraordinary precision and attention to detail. The scale of the visual effects operation was unprecedented. The lead visual effects company was Weighted Digital in Wellington, at one point employing 900 people to work on the film. This workforce represented one of the largest concentrations of digital artists ever assembled for a single project. Data management became a critical challenge given the unprecedented amount of digital content being created. Because of the huge amount of data which needed to be stored, cataloged and available for everybody involved, even on the other side of the world, a new cloud computing and digital asset management (DAM) system named Gaia was created by Microsoft especially for Avatar, which allowed the crews to keep track of and coordinate all stages in the digital processing. The computational requirements for Avatar were staggering and pushed the boundaries of available technology. The render farm occupies the 193rd to 197th spots in the top 500 list of the world's most powerful supercomputers. This level of computational power was necessary to handle the complexity of Avatar's digital environments and characters. New software tools were developed specifically for Avatar's needs. A new texturing and paint software system, called Mari, was developed by the Foundry in cooperation with Weta. These purpose-built tools were necessary to handle the unprecedented resolution and complexity of Avatar's digital assets. The supervision of the visual effects process required experienced leadership. Joe Lettery was the film's visual effects general supervisor. Lettery's expertise and leadership were crucial to coordinating the massive visual effects effort and ensuring technical and artistic consistency across all vendors. The musical score for Avatar was composed by James Horner, marking his third collaboration with James Cameron following their successful partnerships on Aliens and Titanic. Composer James Horner scored the film, his third collaboration with Cameron after Aliens and Titanic. This established relationships between composer and director provided a foundation of trust and creative understanding that would prove essential to developing Avatar's unique musical landscape. The creation of Avatar's music began early in the production process. Horner recorded parts of the score with a small chorus singing in the alien language Na'vi in March 2008. This early recording session established the musical connection to Pandora's indigenous culture and demonstrated Horner's commitment to creating an authentic musical world for the Na'vi people. Horner's approach to Avatar's music involved extensive cultural research and collaboration. He also worked with Wanda Bryant, an ethnomusicologist, to create a music culture for the alien race. This scholarly approach to developing the Na'vi musical traditions ensured that the score would have cultural depth and authenticity beyond mere exotic sound. The scoring schedule was planned to align with the film's complex post-production timeline. The first scoring sessions were planned to take place in early 2009. This timing allowed Horner to work with near-final visual effects while maintaining sufficient time for the music to be properly integrated with the complex soundscape of the film. Horner's dedication to Avatar was total and exclusive during the composition period. During production, Horner promised Cameron that he would not work on any other project except for Avatar and reportedly worked on the score from 4 in the morning until 10 at night throughout the process. This level of commitment was necessary given the unprecedented challenges of scoring such a complex and innovative film. The composer acknowledged that Avatar represented his most challenging assignment. He stated in an interview, "Avatar has been the most difficult film I have worked on and the biggest job I have undertaken." This assessment reflects both the technical complexity of the project and the creative challenges of developing music for an entirely alien world. Horner's compositional approach for Avatar involved creating two distinct but related musical worlds. Horner composed the score as two different scores merged into one. He first created a score that reflected the Na'vi way of sound and then combined it with a separate traditional score to drive the film. This dual approach allowed the music to represent both the alien culture of the Na'vi and the human elements of the story. The theme song for Avatar was performed by British singer Leona Lewis. British singer Leona Lewis was chosen to sing the theme song for the film, called I See You. This choice brought a recognizable commercial voice to the film while maintaining the ethereal quality that matched Avatar's visual aesthetic. The theme song's promotion was coordinated with the film's marketing campaign. An accompanying music video, directed by Jake Nava, premiered December 15, 2009. On MySpace. This digital premiere strategy aligned with the film's innovative approach to technology and audience engagement. The musical themes of Avatar were closely aligned with the film's narrative and philosophical content. Avatar is primarily an action-adventure journey of self-discovery, in the context of imperialism and deep ecology. Horner's score needed to support these thematic elements while creating an immersive sonic experience that enhanced the film's visual innovations. The influence of other musical traditions was evident in Horner's approach to Avatar. The score incorporated elements that suggested both the alien nature of Pandora and universal emotional themes that would resonate with audiences worldwide. This balance between the exotic and the familiar was crucial to the score's effectiveness in supporting the film's narrative. The integration of the Na'vi language into the musical score created an additional layer of authenticity. By having vocalists perform in the constructed language, Horner created a musical soundscape that was fully integrated into the film's meticulously crafted world. This attention to linguistic detail in the music paralleled the care taken in developing other aspects of Na'vi culture. The orchestral and choral arrangements for Avatar required extensive preparation and rehearsal. The complexity of performing music that incorporated both traditional orchestral elements and exotic vocal techniques in an alien language presented unique challenges for the musicians involved. Horner's experience with large-scale orchestral compositions was essential to managing these logistical and artistic challenges. Released theatrical. The theatrical release of Avatar was as carefully orchestrated and groundbreaking as its production, representing a watershed moment in cinema history that would reshape how films are distributed and exhibited worldwide. Avatar premiered in London on December 10, 2009. and was released theatrically worldwide from December 16 to 18. This coordinated global release strategy was designed to maximize the impact of the film's innovative 3D presentation. The release timeline underwent several adjustments during production. The film was originally set for release on May 22, 2009, during filming, but was pushed back to allow more post-production time as the last shots were delivered in November 8 and give more time for theaters worldwide to install 3D projectors. This delay proved crucial to the film's ultimate success, as it allowed both the completion of the complex visual effects and the expansion of 3D exhibition infrastructure. Technical considerations played a major role in the theatrical presentation. Cameron stated that the film's aspect ratio would be 1.78 to 1 for 3D screenings and that a 2.39 to 1 image would be extracted for 2D screenings. This technical specification reflected Cameron's prioritization of the 3D viewing experience as the definitive way to see Avatar. Even the 3D presentation had variations for different screen types. However, a 3D 2.39 to 1 extract was approved for use with constant image height screens. That is, screens that increase in width to display 2.39 to 1 films. This flexibility in formatting ensured that Avatar could be optimally presented across different theater configurations. Technical challenges emerged even during the premiere screenings. During a 3D preview showing in Germany on December 16, the movie's DRM protection system malfunctioned, and some copies delivered weren't watched at all in the theaters. The problems were fixed in time for the public premiere. These early technical difficulties highlighted the complexity of implementing new digital projection technologies on a global scale. The scale of Avatar's initial theatrical release was unprecedented for a 3D film. Avatar was released in a total of 3,457 theaters in the United States, of which 2,032 theaters showed it in 3D. This massive 3D footprint represented the largest 3D release in cinema history at that time. Audience demand for 3D presentations was extraordinary. In total, 90% of all advance ticket sales for Avatar were for 3D screenings. This overwhelming preference for 3D viewing validated Cameron's emphasis on stereoscopic presentation and demonstrated audiences' appetite for innovative cinema technology. The international release was equally impressive in scope. Internationally, Avatar opened on a total of 14,604 screens in 106 territories, of which 3,671 were showing the film in 3D, producing 56% of the first weekend gross. This global 3D infrastructure represented years of preparation and investment by exhibitors worldwide. IMAX presentation added another premium dimension to Avatar's theatrical release. The film was simultaneously presented in IMAX 3D format, opening in 178 theaters in the United States on December 18. The international IMAX release included 58 theaters beginning on December 16, and 25 more theaters were to be added in the coming weeks. Avatar set new records for IMAX exhibition. The IMAX release was the company's widest to date, a total of 261 theaters worldwide. The previous IMAX record opening was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which opened in 161 IMAX theaters in the U.S., and about 70 international. This expansion of IMAX presentations reflected the format's growing importance in premium cinema experiences. Innovation extended even to experimental exhibition formats. 20th Century Fox Korea adapted and later released Avatar in 4D version, which included moving seats, smells of explosives, sprinkling water, laser lights and wind. This 4D presentation represented the cutting edge of immersive cinema technology and foreshadowed future developments in theatrical presentation. The success of Avatar's initial release led to extended theatrical runs. In July 2010, Cameron confirmed that there would be an extended theatrical re-release of the film on August 27, 2010. Exclusively in 3D theaters and IMAX 3D. This re-release strategy capitalized on continued audience demand and the limited availability of 3D screens during the initial run. The extended version offered additional content to justify the re-release. Avatar Special Edition includes an additional 9 minutes of footage, all of which is CG, including an extension of the sex scene and various other scenes that were cut from the original theatrical film. This additional content provided an incentive for audiences to return to theaters for a second viewing. Cameron acknowledged the substantial cost of the additional scenes. Cameron stated that the 9 minutes of added scenes cost more than $1 million a minute to produce and finish. This expense reflected the high cost of Avatar's visual effects and the commitment to maintaining the film's technical standards even for additional scenes. The extended re-release achieved significant additional box office returns. During its 12-week re-release, Avatar Special Edition grossed an additional $10.74 million in North America and $22.46 million overseas for a worldwide total of $33.2 million. These numbers demonstrated the continued commercial. Avatar was directed by the great James Cameron, Aliens, Terminator, Titanic, A Broken Bar and many more, and stars Sam Worthington as Jake Sully, Zoe Saldana in motion capture as Neytiri, Sigourney Weaver as Grace, and Stephen Lang's Colonel Michael Quaritch. At this point, most people should know Avatar, as it somehow managed to remain the highest-grossing movie of all time, even beating the much-anticipated Star Wars: The Force Awakens. That being said, Avatar follows Jake Sully, a former soldier before losing the use of his legs. Jake's brother, a scientist preparing to go to the world of Pandora, dies in an accident, and so Jake needs to take his place since he has a similar DNA structure, which will allow him to link with his brother's intended avatar. Throughout the film, Jake has to juggle his duties as a soldier, and his growing fondness for the Na'vi people, which becomes very difficult for him. This is my second viewing of Avatar, my first being a few years after its initial release. I have only ever seen it on DVD, so I will not be biased towards the likely incredible movie theater experience. I am going to judge this movie as it always will be unless we see a limited re-release in theaters. It may seem random for me to review this movie 8 years after its release date and 3 years before the intended release date of Avatar 2. The truth is, I recently visited Animal Kingdom in Disney World, which just opened an edition called Pandora, World of Avatar. The portion of the park was simply incredible. Everything was gorgeous and perfect, and the 2 rides were mind-blowing. Of course, this made me want to run home and watch the movie again to see if it was as good as the park is. In the end, I really enjoyed seeing this movie again. Starting with what everyone raves about in this movie, the visuals, I was still blown away many times upon rewatching, even using a standard DVD format of the film. The fictional world of Pandora is fantastic. The people are so fascinating in their tribal ways, and how they interact with nature and its creatures. I also love how the movie almost completely confirms the existence of their deity, Iwa. With so many religions both in fiction and in real life, I thought it was a very interesting choice to base this religion not only on belief and faith but rather show clear results and even allow the Na'vi to physically communicate with Iwa by connecting to it through the trees. Speaking of the Na'vi and their connections, I thought it was fantastic how they can connect to anything from animals, trees, and even each other through follicles on their hair. This was a wild way of giving the Na'vi a sort of natural internet-esque connection to the world around them. By plugging into a banshee, the Na'vi can see what they see and ride them not as a pilot, but as one with them. The animals were so cool too. They all had fantastic designs, and, mostly, looked great on screen. I especially loved the banshees, but that may be because I rode one, in Disney. Of course, Broken Bar. The score was also magnificent, and so immersive in nearly every scene. You just felt the magic and freedom of riding a banshee. You felt the serenity of the nightlife on Pandora. You felt the weight and power of battle. It's a soundtrack that, quite frankly, gave me the same feeling I get walking through Disney World, like I've been transported somewhere else, somewhere incredible. As for the characters, when they hit hard, but when they miss, it hurts. Jake starts out as a generic wounded warrior you see in many stories. He soon grows as a character once he regains his mobility using his avatar. You see how everything he once thought was right is suddenly not what it seems, and how he needs to either grow and move on, or cause a lot of harm to a lot of people if he doesn't. The standout for me was Neytiri, the Na'vi princess who befriends Jake and teaches him the ways of the Na'vi. Their relationship was so fluid and well done, just what you would expect from the man who brought us Titanic. While it can sometimes be cliché, liar revealed, I thought it really worked for the movie. As for flaws, this movie, unfortunately, has many. Revenue does not mean quality, and this is nowhere near a perfect movie, no matter how much money it made. Starting with the characters, the Colonel is extremely one-note. He is the soldier, who will do whatever it takes to complete his assignment. He hates the Na'vi for really no reason. One scratched his face. And he's so clearly the antagonist the second you see him. He has no redeeming qualities, nothing to make you even slightly sympathize with his cause. He's just a bad guy, and that's a shame. Giovanni Ribisi, who is one of my favorite actors, played such a bad character. He played him perfectly fine, but all he had to work with was a guy standing at CGI projection tables babbling about how he needs the ridiculously named unobtainium and that the native Na'vi live right under a pile of it. I just watched the movie 2 hours ago and I swear I can't even remember why humanity needs this metal. It's just an easy way to cause conflict between the natives and the humans. I understand that this movie was James Cameron's not-so-subtle way of telling us to take care of nature, but there's a reason everyone compares this movie to tons of other movies and stories like Ferngully and the Lorax. Also, 8 years later, the CGI is sometimes very dated. In the forest, at night, and when there's only Na'vi, it looks amazing, and techniques of smells, as well as splashing water on you, and even simulating the breathing banshee on your legs. The second ride, Na'vi River Journey, was a much calmer ride with no thrills, but it did have practical and projection visuals that created such a beautiful and fascinating ride. I really felt like I was there, and I wanted to get right back online to sing with the shaman. Also, I had a fruity night blossom drink at the Punku beverage stand, which was so sweet and delicious with yummy boba balls on top. I had 2 during my week in the resort, and I can't wait to go back for more. Delicious. I recommend everyone gets out there to see this part of the park. It really makes Animal Kingdom worth visiting. It also revitalized my enjoyment of the Avatar world and franchise, which is not a bad thing. Actual picture of Pandora in Walt Disney World. Insane, right? There are many words one could use to describe the heightened visual quality of James Cameron's original Avatar. Words like incandescent, immersive, bedazzling. But in the 13 years since that movie came out, the word I tend to remember it best by is glowing. The primeval forest and floating mountain landscapes of Pandora had an intoxicating fairy tale shimmer. You wanted to live inside them, even as the story that unfolded inside them was merely okay. In Avatar, The Way of Water, Cameron's bigger, longer and even more dizzyingly spectacular sequel, spoiler alert, the story is still just okay. The technology that Cameron uses to take us back to Pandora has been sharpened in every way. The 3D images have an uncanny tactility. If you had to describe them in just one word, it might be hypercolor. The film also has the eerie present tense quality peculiar to high frame rate shooting. It's a rather so loose feel, as it was in Peter Jackson's Hobbit films, but it can make you feel like you're sharing the same space with the characters. And that's something of a feat given that most of them are tall, blue-skinned Na'vi warriors with the eyes of mountain lions and the speed of gazelles. Avatar, The Way of Water has scenes that will make your eyes pop, your head spin and your soul race. The heart of the movie is set on Atwatu, a tropical island reef where Jake Sully, Sam Worthington, the Na'vi insurrection leader who started off as a disabled U.S. Marine and became a Pandora forest dweller through his Avatar identity. He's basically a half-breed. His now wife, Neytiri, Zoe Saldana +A, and their 4 children have taken refuge from the Sky People, the corrupt military cutthroats who are now fighting to colonize Pandora so that the people of Earth can have a future. On the island, Jake and his family form an uneasy alliance with the Meetke'ina clan, who live in harmony with their aquatic surroundings, and who look a lot like the Na'vi except that their skin is light teal and they have Maori-like tattoos. The teenagers of both tribes engage in preening rites of adolescent bonding, riding the island's long-necked creatures through the sea. Whenever the film enters those ocean depths, It becomes a trippy and vicarious underwater world ride. The life we see in the Pandora Ocean, iridescent fauna, diaphanous psychedelic plants that can give you visions, fish that look every bit as sci-fi strange as the fish on Earth, lumpy whales with the faces of hammerhead sharks is a marvel to behold. But the money shot element is that the state-of-the-art 3D, never in your face, just images that look and feel sculpted, makes the film's every underwater glide feel as experiential as one that you're literally on. The Way of Water cost reported $350 million, meaning that it would need to be one of the 3 or 4 top-grossing movies of all time just to break even. I think the odds of that happening are actually quite good. Cameron has raised not only the stakes of his effects artistry but the choreographic flow of his staging, to the point of making The Way of Water, like Avatar, into the apotheosis of a must-see movie. The entire world will say, we've got to know what this thrill ride feels like. At its height, it feels exhilarating, but not all the way through. Cameron, in The Way of Water, remains a fleet and exacting classical popcorn storyteller, but oh, the story he's telling, the script he has co-written is a string of serviceable cliché copyrights that give the film the domestic adventure thriller spine it needs. But not anything more than that. The story, in fact, could hardly be more basic. The Sky People, led again by the treacherous Cole Quaritch, Stephen Lang, have now become avatars themselves, with Quaritch recast as a scowling Na'vi redneck in combat boots and a black crew cut. They've arrived in disguise to hunt Jake down, but Jake escapes with his family and hides out with the Medcaina. Quaritch and his goon squad commandeer a hunting ship and eventually track them down. There is a massive confrontation. The end. This tale, with its bare-bones dialogue, could easily have served an ambitious Netflix thriller, and could have been told in 2 hours rather than 3. But that's the point, isn't it? The Way of Water is braided with sequences that exist almost solely for their sculptured majestic magic. It's truly a movie crossed with the virtual reality theme park ride. Another way to put it is that it's a live-action film that casts the spell of an animated fantasy. But though the faces of the Na'vi and the Medcaina are expressive, and the actors make their presence felt, there is almost zero dimensionality to the characters. The dimensionality is all in the images. Cameron, a 4-decade veteran of bravura action logistics, has lost none of his mojo. His combat sequences are miraculously sustained, and he brings off a real coup in the relationship that Loic, Britton Dalton, Jake and Neytiri's second son, forms with one of the whales, who becomes, in a great scene, the centerpiece of a surprise attack. On the other hand, where the culminating sequence of the original Avatar was that astounding spectacle of the Na'vi swooping this way and that on their flying psychedelic griffins, the climax of The Way of Water is more heavy-duty, with bullets, apocalyptic fire and a collapsing ship that makes several of the characters look like they got trapped in one of the disaster sequences of Cameron's Titanic. Evoking that movie is a tactical mistake, because it reminds you that Titanic was a jaw-dropping spectacle with characters who touched us to the core. I'm sorry, but as I watched The Way of Water the only part of me that was moved was my eyeballs. Avatar, The Way of Water review. It's even more I haven't seen this movie since its original theatrical run almost a decade ago, and in my memory it had been only a decent story mostly buoyed by its special effects which I figured would surely seem dated at this point and less impressive on a TV than on a 3D film screen anyway. I mostly put it on just because my wife and I are visiting Walt Disney World for our anniversary next month, and I wanted a refresher on the IP before exploring the new Pandora section at Animal Kingdom. So perhaps my expectations were artificially low going into his rewatch of the film, but I was pleasantly surprised by how much I ended up liking it. Yes, the plot copies heavily from stories like Fern Gully or Disney's Pocahontas, and there's some problematic mighty-whitey and noble savage tropes going on, but the story, the characters, and the world-building are all really well developed. The beginning of the film especially has a very tight script that quickly establishes who these people are and explains all of the sci-fi issues necessary to dive into their world. And the visuals hold up well too. In general, I'm always going to care more about a character-driven storyline than how pretty it looks, But this movie really is so pretty and so alien. You can tell how much James Cameron labored over the whole project, and I only hope that the long time that's now elapsed before the sequels is due to that same level of care. I actually do want to see more films in this series now, which is not something I probably would have said yesterday. Star cast: Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Stephen Lang, Jack Champion. Ensemble. Director: James Cameron. What's good? Cameron is not hell-bent on revamping the world entirely just because he has more money and means, but he is dedicated to telling you the story of the characters he has developed so well. What's bad? He goes into a zone where it almost feels like you are in a pram and James has the handle to navigate you through this world. It is also good but a lot oversimplifying in parts. Lou Brake, a filmmaker, is back with his crown jewel after over a decade. Even in dull moments, you have no right to even shift your focus. Watch or not? You either watch or watch. Simple. Language: English, with subtitles. Available in theaters near you. Runtime: 192.10 minutes. User rating: Jake Sully is no more a human driving an avatar, but very much an Avi. People of Pandora: he is not just the Elohim but also the Tawaruk Makto and has the responsibility to guide the entire community that lives in the forest and worships. The Sky People come back one day and it is the old enemy packaged in a new personality, and Jake has to defeat him and save his family. Yes, he is a father to 4 children now, 5 actually. You will know. Avatar: The Way of Water movie review. Script analysis: the year was 2009. And the guy reviewing The Way of Water was 13. He entered a hall full of clueless people like him, and the colorful world hypnotized him to the extent that he bought a DVD to watch it again, breaking his piggy bank. For a whole lot like me, Avatar has defined cinema, and the best of it for a phase. It not only broke the mold of the template of big tentpole movies but changed the course of how VFX and CGI were perceived. So when James Cameron decides to revisit Pandora, it does not just mean a movie at this point, but the return of a movement that defined many things good. Somebody on Earth with the lab that scales the level of human imagination, please carry out every possible test on James and his team to understand at what level these masters imagine and how far it goes. Avatar: The Way of Water is, of course, an in-depth exploration of Jake Sully's life in Pandora and how the planet continues to exist. But Cameron induces art of the absurd in every frame. While doing so, he also makes sure there is a line drawn on how much is too much. The filmmaker, with his team of writers including Rick Jaffa, Amanda Silver, Josh Friedman, and Shane Salerno, does a smart job of growing his story horizontally opposed to vertically progress. Let me explain. Avatar: The Way of Water isn't overtly beautified or scaled up in a way that the entire world looks different. It is very much true and closest to its predecessor and doesn't try to overpower grandeur in any way. Rather, it skillfully spreads the canvas in width. The same old characters are taking the center stage, with the newly developed well enough to now have their own tangents in this world. At the core of it, Cameron creates a story of bonding, family, and the values of standing for each other in testing times. Think of it as an alien movie directed by an English-speaking Suraj Barjatya, in a good way. At the heart of it, The Way of Water is about a man who is still an outsider at heart, so he has to put in that extra effort to always prove his loyalty even when he stands on the highest of the days. So he expects his kids to follow the same. He expects them to have values, save their family, and also grow into the best Navis. He is disappointed with one and proud of another, creating a rift between the children. A classic Bollywood template, but we shouldn't complain because there is no crime involved. Amid all of this, the filmmaker highlights human greed, the urgency to find a substitute for Earth. And what if we are doing that at the cost of an entire population? You cannot not talk about how beautifully a culture the movie has designed and blown life into it. But above all is the imagination. It is not an easy task to design a movie where every element, including that one strand of grass, is supposed to be different and also give it value so the audience connects to it. Do I need to emphasize how well the characters are edged out and placed? The thing where The Way of Water will be bothering for some will be the part where the family migrates to a new community. Told you the canvas grows. Cameron takes his own time to show you the ways of this new land and how the Sullys have to now unlearn everything and learn the new way. While cinematically one can understand Cameron is marinating his audience in this new setup, for some it might be spoon-feeding or oversimplifying. Also, the drama does enter the melodramatic grounds more than once and the shift isn't organic enough. In some places, the film also relies a lot on the predecessor and sometimes becomes an almost rehash, making you think removing the said part might have made the over 3-hour ride crisper. Avatar: The Way of Water movie review. Star performance. Everyone that works on an Avatar movies and especially the actors who play the Navis deserves every possible credit. If you don't understand, go on YouTube and check the making of the first part. It is a showcase of sheer acting talent and caliber. Sam Worthington no longer has a human body to time and again shine as his real self. He is entirely an Navi and he doesn't disappoint. Even with the VFX, you feel his pain. I worship Zoe Saldana for what she does with Neytiri. Remember her breakdown sequence in part 1 when she realized Jake was an ally of the Sky People all this while. There are more such this time and the actor proves why she deserves to be where she is every single time. Stephen Lang is now a baddie you love to hate and hate to love. While he does stand true to what is expected, I wish the part around his son and his fatherly instincts wasn't rushed. Everyone else does an amazing job and makes the movie the spectacle it is. Wish Kiri's angle was explored more though. She talks to the ocean and the world underneath even gets controlled by her. But too much of it is kept suspense. Even the cliffhangers need to have an edgy cliff. This doesn't. Avatar: The Way of Water movie review. Direction, music. James Cameron, while having the most cinematic of the minds in world cinema, understands emotions and how to use them. If the man has made us root for a fictional race of aliens and reciprocates to their pain, he has managed to be successful. His vision is light years ahead and if there is a Pandora, take me there, you guys. Through his vision, Cameron even builds a more nuanced and two-sided man-animal relationship this time. It's too fan and his horse nostalgia for us Indians, but it all does work. Because you tend to celebrate when that writing translates to the screen with a massive scale of visual treat. Sit through the part the story shifts to the waters and see how the man imagines the world underwater. The music is just perfect and examining the technicalities of the visual department is way beyond the expertise of more than half of population of this planet. Avatar: The Way of Water movie review. The last word. Avatar: The Way of Water is a very personal movie that doesn't try to please the audience but be content with itself. James Cameron wants his emotions to be the core even if it looks dramatic and unapologetic. Filmmakers are all we need. Avatar: The Way of Water trailer. Share with us your experience of watching Avatar: The Way of Water. Must read, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever movie review, poignant tribute to a king, sisterhood reigns. This is the MCU we missed, cinema we deserve. Star cast: Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Stephen Lang, Jack Champion. Ensemble. Director, James Cameron. What's good? Cameron is not hell-bent on revamping the world entirely just because he has more money and means, but he is dedicated to telling you the story of the characters he has developed so well. What's bad? He goes into a zone where it almost feels like you are in a pram and James has the handle to navigate you through this world. It is also good but a lot oversimplifying in parts. Lou Brake, a filmmaker, is back with his crown jewel after over a decade. Even in dull moments, you have no right to even shift your focus. Watch or not? You either watch or watch. Simple. Language, English, with subtitles. Available in theaters near you. Runtime, 192.10 minutes. User rating: Jake Sully is no more a human driving an avatar, but very much a Navi, people of Pandora. He is not just the Aloiactan but also the Tawaruk Makto and has the responsibility to guide the entire community that lives in the forest and worships. The Sky People come back one day and it is the old enemy packaged in a new personality and Jake has to defeat him and save his family. Yes, he is a father to 4 children now, 5 actually. You will know. Avatar: The Way of Water movie review. Script analysis: the year was 2009, and the guy reviewing The Way of Water was 13. He entered a hall full of clueless people like him, and the colorful world hypnotized him to the extent that he bought a DVD to watch it again, breaking his piggy bank. For a whole lot like me, Avatar has defined cinema, and the best of it for a phase. It not only broke the mold of the template of big tentpole movies but changed the course of how VFX and CGI were perceived. So when James Cameron decides to revisit Pandora, it does not just mean a movie at this point, but the return of a movement that defined many things good. Somebody on Earth with the lab that scales the level of human imagination, please carry out every possible test on James and his team to understand at what level these masters imagine and how far it goes. Avatar: The Way of Water is, of course, an in-depth exploration of Jake Sully's life in Pandora and how the planet continues to exist. But Cameron induces art of the absurd in every frame. While doing so, he also makes sure there is a line drawn on how much is too much. The filmmaker, with his team of writers including Rick Jaffa, Amanda Silver, Josh Friedman, and Shane Salerno, does a smart job of growing his story horizontally opposed to vertically progress. Let me explain. Avatar: The Way of Water isn't overtly beautified or scaled up in a way that the entire world looks different. It is very much true and closest to its predecessor, and doesn't try to overpower grandeur in any way. Rather, it skillfully spreads the canvas in width. The same old characters are taking the center stage, with the newly developed well enough to now have their own tangents in this world. At the core of it, Cameron creates a story of bonding, family, and the values of standing for each other in testing times. Think of it as an alien movie directed by an English-speaking Suraj Barjatya, in a good way. At the heart of it, The Way of Water is about a man who is still an outsider at heart, so he has to put in that extra effort to always prove his loyalty even when he stands on the highest of the days. So he expects his kids to follow the same. He expects them to have values, save their family, and also grow into the best Navis. He is disappointed with one and proud of another, creating a rift between the children. A classic Bollywood template, but we shouldn't complain because there is no crime involved. Amid all of this, the filmmaker highlights human greed, the urgency to find a substitute for Earth. And what if we are doing that at the cost of an entire population? You cannot not talk about how beautifully a culture the movie has designed and blown life into it. But above all is the imagination. It is not an easy task to design a movie where every element, including that one strand of grass, is supposed to be different and also give it value so the audience connects to it. Do I need to emphasize how well the characters are edged out and placed? The thing where The Way of Water will be bothering for some will be the part where the family migrates to a new community. Told you the canvas grows. Cameron takes his own time to show you the ways of this new land and how the Sullys have to now unlearn everything and learn the new way. While cinematically one can understand Cameron is marinating his audience in this new setup, for some it might be spoon-feeding or oversimplifying. Also, the drama does enter the melodramatic grounds more than once, and the shift isn't organic enough. In some places, the film also relies a lot on the predecessor and sometimes becomes an almost rehash, making you think removing the said part might have made the over 3-hour ride crisper. Avatar: The Way of Water movie review. Star performance. Everyone that works on an Avatar movies, and especially the actors who play the Navis, deserves every possible credit. If you don't understand, go on YouTube and check the making of the first part. It is a showcase of sheer acting talent and caliber. Sam Worthington no longer has a human body to time and again shine as his real self. He is entirely an Avi, and he doesn't disappoint. Even with the VFX, you feel his pain. I worship Zoe Saldana for what she does with Neytiri. Remember her breakdown sequence in part 1 when she realized Jake was an ally of the Sky People all this while? There are more such this time, and the actor proves why she deserves to be where she is every single time. Stephen Lang is now a baddie you love to hate and hate to love. While he does stand true to what is expected, I wish the part around his son and his fatherly instincts wasn't rushed. Everyone else does an amazing job and makes the movie the spectacle it is. Wish Kiri's angle was explored more though. She talks to the ocean and the world underneath even gets controlled by her. But too much of it is kept suspense. Even the cliffhangers need to have an edgy cliff. This doesn't. Avatar: The Way of Water movie review. Direction, music. James Cameron, while having the most cinematic of the minds in world cinema, understands emotions and how to use them. If the man has made us root for a fictional race of aliens and reciprocates to their pain, he has managed to be successful. His vision is light years ahead, and if there is a Pandora, take me there, you guys. Through his vision, Cameron even builds a more nuanced and two-sided man-animal relationship this time. It's too fan and his horse nostalgia for us Indians, but it all does work, because you tend to celebrate when that writing translates to the screen with a massive scale on visual treat. Sit through the part the story shifts to the waters and see how the man imagines the world underwater. The music is just perfect, and examining the technicalities of the visual department is way beyond the expertise of more than half of population of this planet. Avatar, The Way of Water movie review. The last word. Avatar, The Way of Water is a very personal movie that doesn't try to please the audience but be content with itself. James Cameron wants his emotions to be the core, even if it looks dramatic, and unapologetic filmmakers are all we need. Avatar, The Way of Water trailer. Share with us your experience of watching Avatar, The Way of Water. Must read. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever movie review. Poignant tribute to a king. Sisterhood reigns. This is the MCU we missed, cinema we deserve. In 2009, James Cameron gave the world a technical marvel of a film that at the time encapsulated all that was grand about blockbuster spectacle filmmaking. Avatar was, and still is at the time of writing, the highest-grossing movie of all time. Yet with that accolade came its fair share of criticism. It was a raging success at the time of release, but like with most popular films, eventually the pendulum swings, it loses its shine, and the dissonant voices grow louder. When something grows as popular as Avatar, eventually it becomes cool to be different and people start to like hating on it. Since it's a film best seen on the biggest screen possible, a lot of people didn't opt for a rewatch once it hit the home market, causing the good feelings and memory to fade, the criticisms to grow ever louder, eventually causing some viewers to develop an almost embarrassed reaction to ever liking the movie in the first place. The sequels to the film have notoriously been in production for over a decade. The landscape of cinema has changed a lot since then. In preparation for the release of the first sequel, Avatar, The Way of Water, the film was re-released on the silver screen. As a huge fan with fond memories, I was eager to revisit this story in the vibrant world of Pandora. Yet was it how I remembered? Has it lost its shine? Are its criticisms valid? Violence, scary images, set on a mythical moon, the jungle is filled with dangerous animals, and characters narrowly avoid getting hurt. These scenes might be scary for younger viewers. There are multiple battle sequences where characters are killed by explosions, bows and arrows, gunshot wounds, or blunt force trauma. Corpses are shown and some characters die on screen, although there is minimal blood involved. Language, crude humor, infrequent swearing. It's mostly done by characters within the army. The S-word is said multiple times, along with other offensive language. No F-bombs. God's name is used in vain. There are some derogatory slurs given to a wheelchair user, and towards a sentient native species on the alien moon. Drug, alcohol references. One character smokes cigarettes frequently. Sexual content, no nudity. The native alien species wear loincloths. Two characters have intercourse as part of a marriage ritual. Viewers see them straddling before the scene fades away, and there's an ensuing conversation about them being a mated pair. Spiritual content. All the species on Pandora have a biological appendage which they can use to link to each other's or the moon's neural pathways. Pantheistic in nature, the moon Pandora is thought to be sentient, where connecting your neural pathways is a deeply spiritual exercise, and is one way to share one's thoughts and feelings with the moon's deity, called Iwa. Prayers are given to Iwa in this manner, which may or may not be answered through natural forces. Other negative content. Other sentient beings are frequently disrespected, with their lives and culture treated with little sense of importance in some human circles. Certain military actions are done with the express purpose of culturally scarring an entire race. There are numerous instances of double-crossing and lying through a mission. Positive content. The film harbors a deep respect for the prominence religion can have in our lives, and displays how a person's beliefs can be more important and hold more worth compared to material things. There are strong environmental messages regarding the destruction of mining, and the need to respect nature and local cultures. I loved this film the first time I watched it. Avatar was one of the most memorable cinematic experiences of my life. Recommended to be viewed on the biggest screen possible. I remember feeling lucky to live in Sydney, Australia, as I had the opportunity to watch it in 3D at Darling Harbour, which at the time was literally the largest IMAX screen in the world. With the screen filling my eyeballs, I didn't merely watch the action occurring on the fictional moon Pandora. I was in Pandora. I was living it, breathing it, running alongside Jake and taking flying lessons in the sky. Avatar is possibly one of the most immersive experiences you can have in mainstream cinema. To set the scene for those that are unaware, James Cameron didn't invent 3D technology. Using Darling Harbour's IMAX as an example, they frequently hosted gimmicky specially made documentaries where a lighthearted trip to a pharaoh's tomb in Egypt would consist of contrived moments where rocks or bats would fly out of the screen as archaeologists descended into the darkness. As a little kiddie I went on school excursions there, and that's what 3D was, a special outing or a gimmick of cinema that remained firmly in the realm of spectacle, where kids would reflexively reach out and try and touch the optical illusions that transcended past the screen. James Cameron's Avatar shook things up because he flipped things around. Instead of objects reaching out towards the audiences, instead things tended to recede. With 3D technology he created a sense of depth perception, producing a more lifelike experience as though viewers were seeing the world alongside the characters. In a clever move, this choice also went hand in hand with one of the story's major motifs. The native people on Pandora, the Na'vi, frequently say "I see you" as a greeting or a way to strengthen bonds, and it's not a matter of physically seeing someone, rather it's about understanding the individual on a deeper level, connecting with their soul, much like the difference between watching something that's two-dimensional, and viewing something ordained in three-dimensional splendor. Try as they might, no other film really managed to capture the same magic Avatar generated when it came to the use of 3D. Animated films made the best attempt. Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Gale featured some breathtakingly beautiful moments, while some of the flying sequences in the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy were also epic. Generally speaking, scenes that took flight or were set in space tended to reap the most from the 3D treatment, with Gravity being another cinematic achievement. By far, from what I personally saw, it's Disney's short film Get a Horse, which featured the most creative use of this optical film technique before it fell back into the realm of being nothing but a gimmick. Once studios realized they could charge audiences a few extra dollars for the 3D treatment, a number of blockbuster films were rendered in post, cheapening the quality of the 3D visuals. For a lot of films, it didn't add a whole lot to the picture, making it feel like a useless, tacked-on addition. Along with complaints from those with visual aids or difficulties, since Avatar, we've seen the full rise and fall of 3D effects, where it has once again returned to being a cinematic novelty and gimmick. Avatar was also heavily praised for its CGI in general. Created just before the Marvel Cinematic Universe came into existence, it was also made in a time when graphic designers and animators were given reasonable deadlines to complete their work. Released over a decade ago, modern audiences may wonder if Avatar's special effects have aged well, as once again, it's pre-MCU and we've had a plethora of CGI-heavy films since then, whereas Avatar stood rather alone in that department at the time. Watching it on the big screen again in 2022, it's gobsmacking how well Avatar holds up. The backgrounds don't seem as well rendered in parts, but the attention to detail on the main action is still top-notch. Not sure if that's more of a comment on the greatness of Avatar or how time-poor CGI-heavy films have been since then. However, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise that Avatar still manages to hold its own, just how Jurassic Park made a giant leap in cinematic technology, which also still holds up. Avatar was the next big step, and there hasn't exactly been much more development in this field. Experimentation in cinemas has since focused more on higher frame rates, Peter Jackson's Hobbit trilogy and Gemini Man being the ones of note. 4D cinematic experiences, where I had a very enjoyable time with Aquaman, Zero Gravity special effects, Inception and Gravity being the most groundbreaking, and new animation styles, such as Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse. It just goes to show just how revolutionary Avatar was, and how little development has occurred in some areas since its creation. Yet of course, cinematic technology still needs good storytelling working alongside it if it hopes to be more than a mere experimental art piece. And despite what people might say, Avatar is still strong in this area. The narrative has a familiarity to it as it's a classic example of a hero's journey told within a traditional 3-act structure. We meet with Jake Sully, an ex-Marine due to recently becoming a paraplegic, who through an unfortunate set of circumstances, finds himself unwittingly part of a science experiment that has him mentally driving the Avatar, an empty shell of a body, of an indigenous species, the Na'vi, on a foreign moon, Pandora. We see the joy of a character that gets the opportunity to walk again as he makes the most of his experience. As he slowly befriends the Na'vi and learns their ways, it becomes clear the CGI has a role to play as well. The more we follow Jake on his journey through the beautiful forests of Pandora, the easier it is to understand Jake's growing love for his new life and the conflict he endures, while we also adore and appreciate this foreign landscape as well, all thanks to inspiring visuals. As soon as audiences fall in love with the place, James Cameron gets to work on ripping it apart, emotionally traumatizing viewers who are by then in step with the characters. It creates a guttural urge to see certain events come to fruition, making the story of Avatar predictable in the best sense as it hits all the needed story beats with satisfying gusto. Is the story particularly deep? Since Avatar achieved so much in regards to box office earnings and award recognition, I find people do tend to hold it to a higher standard compared to other blockbuster movies. Those that criticize it for not being as emotionally deep or nuanced as an independent film need to take a step back and recognize that the large part of Avatar's success is due to its universal and approachable nature in terms of plot and character. In contrast, indie films don't get the equivalent financial support because they typically are only appealing to a niche market. Simply put, Avatar is as rich and developed as it needs to be in order to entertain its mass market, nothing more, nothing less. Compared to other blockbuster films in terms of story and character development, it's one of the better ones. What particularly struck me upon my latest rewatch was how heavy Avatar's representation was concerning spirituality. Religion in the context of this story takes on a pantheistic approach, where everything is connected through nature, and Pandora may have a sentient quality. Of course, since it's all rooted in the physical world, it means that God can die, which provides the central source of conflict in the plot. There are massive fundamental differences between the theology depicted in Avatar and Christianity, though what the film really nails, which Christians will also relate towards, is the prominence and priority the characters give their religious beliefs. It's a narrative that respects and understands the importance of religion, and the reason why it struck me this time around compared to previous viewings, is because this is now a rare feature in cinema. The spiritual side of a character's personality is mostly absent or underexplored in modern films, as movies have tried to express themes regarding the death, uselessness or dissatisfaction of God, or not factor in this side of the human experience at all. Avatar feels like a final remnant of an era of cinema before it shifted to a more atheistic stance. This epic story in terms of scale and spiritual yearning is all enhanced by wondrous soundtrack. Like most blockbuster films, the music noticeably crescendos in action sequences, denoting the highs and lows of emotion, and while its usage is nothing out of the ordinary, the tunes themselves are highly memorable and varied. It's instantly recognizable with its ethereal quality and occasionally heavy overtones, making the soundtrack to this film above average compared to others of its ilk. At the time of its release, Avatar featured some of the most intense mocap acting committed to screen, and along with Andy Serkis' contributions and other franchises, it sparked a debate as to whether such roles should be eligible for acting categories at the Academy Awards. There's been a lot more output in this area since then, which has dulled Avatar's shine, Although Zoe Saldana as Neytiri still delivers an emotional and standout performance, Sigourney Weaver is great as always, while Stephen Lang works well with what he's given. Colonel Miles Guerrich, played by Lang, is the villain of the piece, and his motivations are very straightforward and simple. He'd be a very bland and one-dimensional antagonist if it weren't for Stephen Lang's signature likability in these types of roles. There's one scene where Guerrich marches out into a deadly toxic environment in order to keep shooting, before finally turning to equip an oxygen mask up. It's just a cool moment for the character that encapsulates the type of man Guerrich is along with his priorities. One of the weirder criticisms that has popped up since the film's re-release is Sam Worthington's presence. Many have noted that his career hasn't progressed despite starring in the biggest box office blockbuster of all time. Now some are questioning whether James Cameron made a good choice in casting Worthington, as now he's effectively stuck with an actor with little star power in the sequels going forward. Honestly, Worthington is fine. His performance isn't phenomenal, but it's not awful either. In terms of acting, I always like to ask whether there's a moment in the film where I didn't believe the actor, if there's a line that didn't ring true or land right. I can't recall such a time. So, it's fine. Similar to Worthington's lackluster appeal, one of the larger criticisms of the film that has popped up over the years is that, given Avatar's box office performance, it hasn't maintained much presence within the world of pop culture. Well, it certainly is spoken about more often than The Hurt Locker the film Avatar famously lost to for the Best Picture Academy Award. For a movie that many claim had no lasting impact, it still swept the awards circuit. There was plenty of merchandise at the time, including game releases and books. Learning Photoshop and turning yourself into an Navi was all the rage on social media. I remember my sister and I used to call each other babies whenever we found something new, interacting with it like Jake Sully did with the reactive forest floor. So it's not entirely true the film had no impact. I recall it maintained its popularity for some length of time. But to compare it to some of the more iconic films of the past, they have a point. However, if we look at the latest list of the world's highest-grossing films, it seems this issue isn't unique to Avatar. There are 3 of the Avengers films: the original, Infinity War, and Endgame, Spider-Man, No Way Home, Star Wars, The Force Awakens, Jurassic World, and even The Lion King, the remake, not the original. I know, it's depressing. There are huge cinematic events, but none of them are highly quotable. Compare this to another on the list, Titanic. Thanks to that film, Mally Brown taught us how to use fancy cutlery. Jack showed us how to spit. People jokingly smeared their hands on misty glass. Cruise ships had to close off their bows to passengers that wished to scream they were the king of the world. The cast all went insane thanks to Celine Dion, Draw Me Like One of Your French Girls, and the debate is still raging over that door. It made a huge cultural splash. Let's be honest, most of the movies now on the highest-grossing list are there not because the individual film itself is special, rather it's because they're standing on the back of other cinematic legends. A lot of them are like a flash in the pan in terms of their cultural impact. This isn't an Avatar problem, rather, with the release cycle now faster than ever before, we're seeing a symptom of a much larger cultural issue which may speak into how quickly we're now consuming and disposing of art. Another critique I hear is that the film is very long. At 2 hours and 42 minutes, it's not on the short side. However, Avatar doesn't tend to drag. Its pacing is reasonable, the third act is filled with action, and it's difficult to say what could be cut without losing some of its magic and sense of awe. Some tales need more time to be told, and Avatar is simply a longer story. Back in 2009, producers recoiled at the idea of longer runtimes. It caused audiences to balk, and it meant less sessions could be played at the cinema per day. 110 minutes was the standard average that studios aimed towards. Once again, times have changed. Over the past decade the MCU in particular has pushed those optimal runtime boundaries, and now it's not that strange to see films running over 2 hours and beyond. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is only 1 minute shorter than Avatar. So while Avatar will still test bladders, it's no longer an outlier to warrant such criticism. The greatest complaint Avatar receives, and the one I hear most often, is that Avatar is just Dances with Wolves. Sometimes it's Pocahontas instead, while the true film buffs or Aussie fans will compare it to Ferngully, The Last Rainforest. Occasionally the words, "in space," are added as well. Avatar is just Dances with Wolves in space. So, that sounds amazing. I'm always a little baffled as to why this is said as a criticism of the film. It's possibly because it's unknown how the person feels about those aforementioned movies. I really enjoyed Dances with Wolves, and Pocahontas and Ferngully. That movie swept the Oscars and even won Best Picture. It's possible to have multiple films covering similar topics and for them to all be good. If anything, that's a wonderful thing to happen. That's the whole purpose of dividing things into different genres in the first place. The grouping together of similar presenting films started off as a marketing strategy for studios and theaters, so they could inform potential viewers. If you like that movie, then chances are you'll enjoy this film as well. Without further inquiry, Avatar is just Dances with Wolves in space, is a critique that doesn't effectively say anything. It's like uttering, Predator is Alien but in the jungle. Friday the 13th is just Halloween but at a camp in the woods. Raya and the Last Dragon is just Avengers Endgame. If you were irritated by any of those statements, mostly because they are bland generalizations that make no actual comment on whether the film was good or bad, now you know how I feel. The aggravating thing, however, is that Avatar and Dances with Wolves aren't actually that similar. Dances with Wolves is a slow-moving drama set within a light Western historical atmosphere, whereas Avatar is an epic science fiction fantasy with heavy action elements. It's not pulling from the same demographic markets. The comparison could work as an oversimplified descriptor of the plot, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend fans of Dances with Wolves to see Avatar and vice versa, as there are far more differences than similarities. Of course, this isn't what is meant by people who compare the two. Usually it's said with a sneer, so obviously it's meant as a derogatory remark against Avatar. But given the chance to elaborate, it's not uncommon for the critic to admit that they can't remember the plot of Avatar: A Broken Bar. Basically, it's a statement that has made the rounds on the internet and people have repeated it ad nauseam without pausing to think about what they're actually saying. Because if people are struggling to remember what happened in Avatar, then how long has it been since they've seen Dances with Wolves? But I'll throw them a bone since I have used that style of criticism before as well. Usually I reserve it for films that are obviously pulling inspiration from a well-known movie in the same subgenre, but it's not crafting its own voice or identity, nor is its quality on par with others. For example, a Netflix original superhero movie that is obviously riding the coattails of much larger films, hoping to rake in some money off the trend. What they offer that's new to the genre is very little, and they're otherwise rather bland, mediocre, generic. None of this bears any resemblance to what Avatar has done and achieved. It felt so good to rewatch Avatar. After so many years, it was refreshing to watch original content once again. It came out in 2009 like a last hurrah before it died and cinema succumbed to corporate studio manufacturing. I own one of the accompanying books of the film entitled Avatar, an activist survival guide. Inside contains descriptions of multiple species of fictitious Pandorian species, examples of the Na'vi language, explanations of the ecosystem, and observations of Na'vi culture and religion. It's nothing short of impressive how much James Cameron created. This is the type of depth usually associated with larger fictional works such as The Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, but here Cameron has reduced it all down to one fully contained and highly entertaining epic movie. When people sneer about some similarity to Dances with Wolves, are people really trying to argue that Avatar is unoriginal, or worse, uncreative? In a year that brought us 3 Pinocchio adaptations and a decade with 3 different Batman actors, 4 if you include the Lego Batman movie, are we really going to persist with the debate that somehow Avatar is unoriginal? If you want to talk about all things generic, go watch this year's remake of Firestarter and get back to me on that. If you watched Black Adam and were impressed by its modicum of originality because of the fact the central character is slightly bad and the story is set in a fictional Middle Eastern stylized country, then you're the person that needs to revisit Avatar. It'll blow your mind. The last criticism Avatar frequently receives, and the most serious, is that it contains the white savior trope. For those unaware, this is where a white protagonist will interact with a minority group and eventually save them from their oppressive forces. Dances with Wolves is frequently cited as a classic example. There are two main problems with this trope. First, it subconsciously states that minority groups are too incompetent to solve their own issues and need the interference of an outsider. Secondly, it robs the minority of having the tale told from their own perspective, using their own voice. The reason this trope was rather prevalent in years past was because of how easily it fell in line with the art of screenwriting. If the viewer was presented with a people group they were unfamiliar with, it was easier to feature a protagonist that was ignorant of their culture so that supporting characters could offer exposition, allowing audiences to expand their knowledge alongside the protagonist. At a glance, it's easy to see where this critique comes from. However, upon closer inspection, it becomes clear that Avatar is not the best example of this trope. There are a number of reasons, though the biggest is simply that there is no minority group that's being oppressed in this film. The Na'vi are a giant blue alien species. Sure, one could be coy and say they are inspired from a number of Earth's older cultures from around the world, though their use of bows and arrows and horse-like creatures does bear more resemblance to Native American culture than other people groups, though that's where the similarities end. No human race lived in giant trees, connected their neural pathways with wildlife, or flew on dragons for transport. That's all from the mind of James Cameron. The Na'vi are no more Native American than Wakandans are Maasai. The indigenous culture the director is drawing inspiration from is nondescript, and this is supported further by the universality of the central conflict. The destruction of cultural heritage sites for industrial expansion and the mining of resources is not unique to the United States, and it's clear the film isn't a direct analogy to some current pinpointed issue. Rather, the message is very broad in that we need to respect the voices and wishes of those in local communities, and we need to protect our forests and Earth's ecosystems. To be facetious for a second, if there's anything we've learned over the debacle over Disney's casting of The Little Mermaid remake, is that the internet consensus was that when it comes to fictional creatures, no matter the cultural heritage that inspired the tale, race doesn't matter as it's a fictional character in a fictional world. There is no minority group, so Avatar has not committed the real-world applicable sins through the white savior trope. It's clear Avatar has taken a beating over the years, most likely due to having a target on its back from its jaw-dropping box office success. Though most complaints don't stand up to scrutiny, it doesn't mean the film is perfect. Its environmental message is heavy-handed and some dialogue is on the nose. The villain is basic and some of its plot progression is a little too formulaic. However, it has aged exceptionally well. No one can take away its technical achievements or its rich imaginative setting. Not everyone will like the story, but a rewatch in today's environment feels fresh and revitalizing in a cinematic landscape that has recently become stale with corporate management. If it has been a while since you visited Pandora, now is the best time to return. It's the epitome of blockbuster filmmaking. Plus the CGI is 13 years old and yet still looks brand new, plus cinematic experience, plus original content, plus awe-inspiring, plus mocap acting, plus has dragons, plus soundtrack, plus classic story told well, heavy-handed environmental message, some on-the-nose dialogue, background starting to look simplistic, occasionally formulaic to a fault. Can't always see it in its full glory for a film predominantly praised for its visual prowess back in 2009. Avatar still holds up well. However, it's the movie's heavily critiqued story which feels the most fresh in today's media landscape. After obtaining a Bachelor of Dramatic Arts, Juliana Pernell has enjoyed a successful acting career, working within theme parks, businesses, and on film sets. She has also taken on crew roles, both in film and theatrical productions. When Juliana isn't working, she enjoys watching movies of all genres at the cinema, writing, and playing with Samson, her Pomeranian. Well, it's finally here. After 13 years, James Cameron has finally come out with the sequel to the highest-grossing movie of all time, despite being briefly eclipsed by Avengers: Endgame. Avatar. Originally projected for release in 2014, Avatar 2 has taken 8 more years to finish and at last premieres this weekend as Avatar: The Way of Water. It's hard to overstate how big a deal the original Avatar was back in 2009. The hype was off the charts in a way that feels alien to me now. No pun intended. Don't get me wrong, the hype around Avengers: Endgame was also huge, but I didn't see articles about how people were depressed after seeing it because the real world was so dull in comparison. That is a thing that happened with Avatar that is still being remarked upon today. The original Avatar was like nothing people had seen before. Cameron built a virtual world filled with realistic-ish life with its own evolutionary tree. He created a race of aliens with a distinctive culture and a real, learnable language. Check out my interview with the creator of the Na'vi language here, and all of it filmed in IMAX 3D. He wanted Pandora to be as real and immersive as possible, and he largely succeeded there. Even so, I had to wonder if Cameron may have finally bitten off more than he can chew this time. Avatar, for all its spectacle, was criticized for a lackluster plot, not terrible by any means. It rates a solid 7/8 out of 10 on review site TISA, but not worthy of the cinematic effort that he put into it, and it was also criticized for being derivative. Dances with Wolves in Space and Ferngully in Space were common comparisons, with The Way of Water being possibly the most expensive film ever made. It doesn't exactly have as strong a foundation as it could to earn back that investment. Plus, I feel like the hype is not there or wasn't before the release. That may change as the reviews roll in. The hype for The Way of Water didn't really start until about a month ago, in my estimation, and it doesn't feel as big as it was for Endgame, or maybe even The Force Awakens. Maybe I'm biased because I cared more about those movies, or maybe I'm more disconnected from Hollywood after the pandemic, but I just wasn't feeling it. Will the movie turn a profit? Very likely. Will it outdo the original? Color me skeptical. But how was the movie? It was a broken bar better. It wasn't top-notch, but it was better than Avatar 1. My rating, 4 out of 5. That is, an 8 out of 10, where I would have given the original Avatar a 6 or 7. It's kind of confusing because movies are rated out of 10. But books are rated out of 5, and yes, I did see it in 3D. Avatar started a 3D craze that began in 2009 once people realized that 3D movies had actually gotten good, so I figured I should at least go that far for The Way of Water, although I did not see it in IMAX. Of course, the 3D craze fizzled out after a while, and I think it was for a reason. This is the first one I've seen since Broken Bar How to Train Your Dragon 3. Maybe. Honestly, I don't think 3D adds that much. Even in 2D, if you see it on the big screen, your brain can fill in the rest. Anyways, spoilers below. We return to Pandora after 15 years or so from the exodus of the Sky People, the humans who tried to exploit the moon's resources. Jake Sully, the hero from Avatar 1, if you haven't been keeping up, and Neytiri are living happily with their 4 children, Nadiam, Loak, Tuk, and Kiri, the last of whom was adopted after mysteriously being birthed by Grace's now mindless avatar Broken Bar, which is still kept alive in its incubation tank for some reason. Then, humans being humans, the Sky People return, with all the brutality they had before, backtrack more environmental destruction and their endless hunger for resources. And in fact, they're now talking about fully colonizing Pandora. Jake Sully leads a guerrilla campaign against the Sky People, so in response, the humans sent a resurrected Colonel Quaritch, the now-dead villain from Avatar 1, to track him down. Quaritch's memories were implanted into a pilotless avatar, making him a Na'vi himself, which a Broken Bar I want to say should be an even bigger game changer than it was, but I suppose it's a rather limited use case. Everyone involved agrees that the new Quaritch is a different person from the original. Regardless, the new Quaritch is as horrible as ever and is absolutely not above killing children and burning villages in his quest to kill Jake Sully. In the clash, he captures Spider, the original Quaritch's now teenaged son, who was left behind on Pandora and has gone native. Fearing that Spider will reveal their secrets, although he doesn't, the Sullys leave their village and go into hiding among the sea people, giving us a whole new ocean setting on Pandora to explore. Oh, and also this is clearly part 1 of 2, much like Pirates of the Caribbean or the original Star Wars trilogy. The second and third movies are clearly meant to be a single, unified story, and that was a really complicated lead-up to explain the actual comments I have about the movie, so let's break them down point by point. The writing. Like I said, the writing was better than the original Avatar. I don't have anything particular I can point to for this. It's just all around, seeing the native life of the Na'vi, from how the two cultures within their world interact with one another to the individual family and friendship dynamics. It felt a broken barrel natural. There also wasn't this stilted, semi-allegorical plot about colonization and the exploitation of resources. It was still very much there, but the main conflict was more personal. The weak point to that is that it narrows the story and scope. There was no massive armada fighting at the Tree of Souls, but I think it came out with stronger writing for it. New world building. Cameron made an interesting move in this movie by adding an entire new sapient species to Pandora, the Talcons. The Talcons are basically Pandoran whales, but unlike Earth whales, as far as we can tell, they are as intelligent as we are and have their own culture and language. In fact, I think he added 2 new species, the sea people, with their webbed hands and long, fluke-like tails. Most of the differences are minor, but those 2 seem significant, look different enough from the forest people that I interpreted them as being a different species, distinct enough that they must have evolved to live in the water for hundreds of thousands of years. Cameron also included 2 new languages in the film. No word on whether Paul Frommer was involved in their creation. 2. There was the sign language that the sea people used to communicate underwater, and there was the Talcons' language, a broken bar which the Na'vi could somehow understand. I didn't get how that worked. The Sullys had to be taught the sign language, but Loak could understand Paikan with no training. Or maybe it was an extremely distorted form of Na'vi, and I just missed it. And of course, as I said, setting the film on the ocean gave us a whole new alien ecosystem to explore, so there was plenty to work with there. Kiri, she had one of the biggest unfinished arcs in the movie, and I'm really interested to see where they go with it. I'm not completely sold on her yet for the sole reason that there are a lot of ways that they could screw her up in the next movie, but she also has a lot of potential as a character. The bad whalers, not just in a moral sense, but in a bad writing sense. The humans are fully aware that the Talcons are as smart or smarter than we are, and also the Talcons are strict pacifists because of course they are, but the whalers still go after them. Why? Because it turns out that the brain secretions of Talcons are a powerful anti-aging drug for humans. Say, doesn't that sound familiar? A broken bar? Oh. Right. Elites today are taking adrenochrome extracted from the pituitary glands of children as an anti-aging drug. A broken bar is a widespread conspiracy theory. This sat very poorly with me. It's almost as bad as when Disney accidentally endorsed homeopathy in Frozen 2. Maybe Cameron wrote the script 10 years ago. Maybe there's no other way to really justify whaling on Pandora, much less of a sapient species, but that felt like a poor choice in today's socio-political environment. Also, the answer to that problem is the same as the answer to the adrenochrome conspiracy. Can't they just synthesize it in lab, especially if they can already clone Pandoran life for adrenochrome? The answer is yes. The Loak and Spider. Don't get me wrong, these are good characters in principle, but their arcs felt a little weak to me. They didn't get the narrative treatment they deserve. For Loak, it seemed a little too contrived how he kept getting beaten down by circumstance and ignored by authority figures, and after pushing it that far, the resolution didn't feel properly developed. And of course, with Loak's arc being weak, Jake's arc in relation to him was also weak. I felt like they were trying to pull a Hiccup and Stoic from How to Train Your Dragon 1, but they just didn't land it. For Spider, I didn't see what they were trying to do with him until after the movie ended, and I still don't understand parts of it. Looking back at the whole I can see how he's always trying to protect people to save others even when he's in just as deep himself or even when they don't deserve it. Perhaps it's out of rebellion to be different from his father, but he didn't show that much. Perhaps it's part of the reason why he went along for the ride with Contatc for so long, but again, it's hard to tell. He shows amazing moral fiber throughout, but somehow, they didn't manage to write it quite right, because I was confused by many of his actions in real time. He had good moments, but they didn't combine into a unified arc for me. Plus his return to the Navy, with the Sullys not knowing whether he was involved in the attack coming to them, was too quickly earned. The ending, Spider saves Contatc because he's Spider but he doesn't tell Jake, at least on screen he presumably did later. Then, left right back where they started and given the choice between running again, returning to the forest, or standing and fighting with the sea people, the Sullys adopt the Metcaena's Island as their new home. I know it's not meant to be a proper ending to the series, but it also felt like a bit of a weird place to leave off, especially because it limits Cameron's ability to explore other parts of Pandora. I'm not sure where he's going with that. Directed by James Cameron, written by Cameron, Rick Jaffa, Amanda Silver, Josh Friedman, and Shane Salerno. 192 minutes, a squared. Rewatching the original Avatar last week, I was reminded of Jim Cameron's incredible ambition, impressive technical wizardry, and cluelessness when it comes to reading the room. Culturally speaking, the dude understands allegory and wants to make a statement about how we in the West are destroying our planet by tapping the resources beneath the land of other people and have been doing that for centuries. In order to tell his story, he's happy to borrow the cultural signifiers of Native American and African indigenous cultures, dressing them up in blue, alien skin. He then has his white hero pretend to be those aliens only to become their spiritual and wartime leader. With his help they'll fight off those terrible sky people, aka those strip mining white westerners. It isn't subtle, as Cameron is reported to have said. 13 years later it's clear he's both learned a lot, and learned not much at all. Where he's picked up some tricks is on the technical wizardry side. He's always been on the bleeding edge of digital cinema. Just go back and see how good The Abyss and Terminator 2, Judgment Day still look. And that's not even considering his mastery of action cinema, the way he moves his camera around, the sound and visual editing. That stuff is unimpeachable. Avatar: The Way of Water is just the next step in his continued effort to show the rest of Hollywood how all that's done. The universe building here, from incredible underwater environments, skies a hypnotic azure dream interrupted by a regular eclipse, to the wildly creative animal denizens of this place, in the air, on land, and in the sea. It's really amazing to watch. It's a testament to what can be done when you've got all the expertise, time, and all the money. The motion capture has come leaps and bounds, especially in the expressiveness in the characters' faces. No pun intended, but I see them now. Those actors are able to give compelling performances through the special effect, and that's so impressive. So, given all of that, why did I walk out of the film annoyed by it? Because Cameron hasn't learned anything about storytelling that doesn't wildly appropriate other cultures for his sandbox. He's also fond of wildly paternalistic family units, and his new adventure is so painfully hokey. Even if it wasn't so insensitive it would still irritate. We're almost real time away from the events of the first film, and Jake Sully, Sam Worthington, has a family with his Navy lady, Neytiri, Zoe Saldana. It's quite the clan, 3 kids, the proud eldest boy, Nadiam, Jamie Flatters, sullen middle child, Noah, Britton Dalton, and cute little girl, Took, Trinity Jolie Bliss. There's also teen Kiri, adopted by the Sullys, who is somehow the daughter of the Navy version of Sigourney Weaver's character from the first film. Who her father is and how that even happened is a mystery the film is happy to leave unsolved. Maybe we'll find out in the next sequel. Weaver also actually plays this hippie child, which seems a weird choice since she sounds nothing like a teenager, but whatever. Then there's Spider, Jack Champion, who is the most egregious retroactively added character, the son of the first movie's villain, Contatc, Stephen Lang. There was no sign of him the first time around, but he's here being raised in this forest with Sully's kids and somehow much more feral than they are. while also being a white boy with dreads. That's never been a good look for all sorts of reasons. Quaritch is also back, but at least he gets a decent science fiction reason to be. He's cloned into the body of a Na'vi avatar, as are a bunch of his Jarhead team. They return to Pandora under the command of General Ardmore, Edie Falco, who says the reason for them being there is that Earth is dying and they need to bring the indigenous Pandorians under control before the big migration. They're not gonna even pretend to do this with good faith as their huge ships burn up the landscape, and now Blue Quaritch and his goons hunt Sully, Neytiri, and the kids. To take the heat off the Omaticaya clan, the family leave to find a new home with a village of ocean-friendly Na'vi variants. The Meetkaina clan, do the human forces, and General Ardmore, keep troubling the forest Na'vi while the Sully family hide out in the Balinese-like paradise. Who knows? 'Cause we never see any of them again. It's amazing how little the movie cares about certain characters, or the reason the humans were in Pandora during the first film as a search for something called unobtainium, which I guess Alia Broken Bar obtained. Then the movie becomes all about the children, and with their petty rivalries the adults get shunted away. I rapidly got irritated by those terrible teens. Part of the problem is though many of them are played by white child actors, they're putting on a variety of strange accents saying none of which match, even within the Sully family. Also annoying is their insistence to use a lot of current slang was, sick, and, most annoyingly, repeatedly, bro. Though they're all blue, their need to call each other bro at every turn makes them sound like privileged white kids pretending to be a minority ethnicity, which is more or less what Cameron wants of them. If there's sympathy to be had for the kids, it's that Jake Sully is a terrible father. He's a wildly paternalistic asshole who, after his kids get into a fist fight with the other clan's dickhead offspring, he insists they go and apologize. But he's clearly thrilled they stood up for their honor of their sister with some bloody violence. Sully's regular refrain of, "I must protect my family," seems cribbed from the 19th century, not the far future. In the midst of this section of the film, the longest and most tiresome part of it, the younger bro, Noak, makes friends with the rogue whale, and for a deeply dull 20 or so minutes Avatar 2 threatens to become a cosmic version of Free Willy. Yes. This is a movie that caps 3 hours, and this is the stuff that could so easily have been cut to spare us its ridiculous, unjustified running time. Worse than all this childishness is the sense that Cameron has taken inspiration for the sea-focused Na'vi people from Polynesian cultures, with Meetkaina clan characters at one point, including one played by Kate Winslet, doing something that looks a lot like the haka, the ceremonial Maori dance. I found one source that says Cameron and New Zealand members of his crew and cast, including Cliff Curtis, who has Maori roots, collaborated to purposefully apply those cultural tropes, say like ornate facial tattoos, to this particular group on Pandora. I hope that's true, because without that kind of consultation Cameron's entire Avatar project starts to look painfully colonialist. Despite the humans being the villains and the deep environmentalist themes also clearly in play. And I'm not the first person to suggest this, especially given some of the boneheaded things Cameron said in the past. There's a good argument to be made that rather than put more money into Cameron's pocket, a fantasy film lover could check out any of a number of films, and many of which are better than this one made by actual indigenous filmmakers. Here's a solid list. But I also can't blame action fans, or fans of big-budget science fiction blockbusters. Fans of 3D can go to hell, who might give in to their curiosity to see this picture. The finale, during which Cameron scratches his mecha fetish itch, his sinking big ship's itch, and his submarine itch, is technically amazing. I won't deny it. It's too bad something so on point in one way is in service of otherwise such a deeply dumb, tiresome movie.